What's going on, guys? Welcome to another video. Quick shout out before we start to today's video sponsor, Monday.com. Thank you so much for supporting the channel and keeping the lights on and letting me produce content the way that I choose. If you guys don't know what Monday.com is, it's a team management software for small teams, large teams. So if you're two freelancers working together for a website for your friend's coffee shop, or you're working for a large corporation, NBC, McDonald's, Uber uses it. Uber's kind of a startup, kind of a large corporation. I don't know what you'd call that anymore. But the interface, let's talk about the interface for a second. The interface is super sleek. It's intuitive, it's simple. You can see who's working on what, their deadlines, how long they've been working on it, and it has everything that you need to make a project successful. So I'll put the link for Monday.com down in the description. I'd appreciate it if you guys check that out. And again, thank you so much for supporting the channel. I know it's been a while since I made a video. I actually lost my voice for a little over a week and I sounded like a cartoon. I'm also traveling, staying with my grandparents, visiting them while they're still around, and just hanging out and enjoying some family time. But my grandparents have grandparent internet, as you would expect, and it's been difficult to upload videos. But now I'm at my friend's and he's letting me upload the video here, so I appreciate that, Thomas. Thanks, dude. So today's video is about cybersecurity, and we're interviewing John Hammond. He has his own YouTube channel where he walks you through CTFs of cybersecurity competitions and challenges, and does CTF write-ups and about how he got to the solution and what he did to figure out things when he was stuck. And he basically just gives us a rundown of everything you need to get into cybersecurity for 2019. It's a longer video than others, but I asked him some really in-depth questions like, what certifications do you need? What was the interview like? What resources do you have that you could point us into the right direction? What would be some good web dev skills to choose that transfer into web application security, specifically if you're already a web dev, which is what this channel is mainly focused on. He has a really great channel. I'll pin that down below as a comment, and I'll include all the resources that he gave me after we were done filming. If you stay until the end of the video, he actually does an example CTF where he takes an internet cookie and then basically breaks the security portion of it, and then he can claim your login information and log in as you. And so it's really interesting to see what cybersecurity is actually about, using web dev skills and a program called Jack the Ripper that's on GitHub that he already had installed. Super cool example. If you want to see, stay until the end. If you guys enjoy this video, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe, hit the little bell so you don't miss any videos. And again, thanks for hanging with me while I am traveling. And I'll see you guys in the next one. So sorry up front for my laptop audio quality. This is John Hammond over here. He is a professional cybersecurity. He's an expert. He teaches people in the military basically how to hack. John, what is your background? Can you give us some more detail on that?
Yeah, sure. I can definitely tell you about my background. I kind of originally started out just wanting to like make stuff. Like I kind of had that kiddish ambition, right? Like, oh, I want to make video games and kind of crap like that. So I wanted to be a programmer, right? I wanted to develop software, like study computer science and all that, and just make things, get the creativity stuff. And that's kind of what I did for like the longest time, because I wanted to program. And I thought that was awesome and that was cool. So I did that, kind of like exploring and poking around throughout high school and going into college. And then kind of the military side of that, when I got into the Coast Guard and college and that, again, that transition phase, like they care about like the security, right? What's good and evil, what's bad, what will protect our software, what will make our nation better and all that. So they care about, you can build something, but can it be broken? What are the vulnerabilities in it? So then I got into that cybersecurity side, and that kind of explored a lot of Linux and capture the flag and penetration testing and that whole like cybersecurity scene.
For your background in programming, can you elaborate just a little bit? Were you doing like web dev? Were you doing software development, as in like Java, or what exactly were you doing in web dev to gain the skills available to actually move into the actual cybersecurity part? Because if you don't have the programming first, it's really difficult to move. So what were you doing specifically, like skill set wise, for the viewers?
Yeah, certainly. Oh, absolutely. Python was just kind of like originally my go-to, like that's like my weapon of choice is what I say, kind of my knee-jerk reaction to if I have a problem in front of me, whether or not it's a program I want to write or a challenge I'm trying to solve or something, that's what I choose. And that came from just my programming and software development side. Originally that was web dev. Like, yeah, I'd love to play with Django and Flask and other frameworks for like creating websites in Python. But originally that came from like learning HTML right? And CSS and eventually PHP, like the server side, and JavaScript and all that. Programming can give you like superpowers if you're into it, and I think that's awesome.
So you were in the Coast Guard for about a year, and they would hold like these exercises of examples of like actual like threats from different countries doing bad things, trying to basically hack into the U.S.'s systems, and you guys would have to defend it. Can you go into a little bit more detail about like what that was like?
Yeah, absolutely. They call them like, I mean, war games is the term that you'll hear, right, when they're trying to simulate some exercise of bad nation state or threat actor or whatever is doing horrible things, like attacking the power grid, taking down lines. It's just anarchy, chaos, and absolute catastrophe, right? So you or us as kind of the blue team is what they'd say. Blue team, when we're trying to actively defend, protect, hunt for bad things, etc. We would be in charge of a network or something that I guess we were the operators on, and I guess strictly it was like the Port of Los Angeles, right? We're protecting the Port of Los Angeles, and that would mean, okay, you've got your information technology stuff, like your IT network corporation stuff. So an Active Directory, domain controller, website, right? A database, email, FTP, regular network services. And then you'd also have like ICS, so industrial control systems, and you juxtapose that from IT to OT, like operational technology. So those can be like power plants. Those can be electrical grids and HVAC systems, things that will control a real physical, real world machine or something. They say confidentiality, right? Integrity and availability. Like those are your 3 tiers of things that you want at all times. Like the data that you have should be trusted. Like it shouldn't be tampered with. Confidentiality, and it should be kept secret. No one else should be able to access it. Integrity, you should have it all on, and availability, it should always be accessible. So keeping those services up and running, and a lot of times that means protection on both the host level, like a physical computer, and the network level, like all the packets and stuff moving back and forth.
So after these war game exercises, simulating real world type attacks that you would have to defend off, basically, they also held like these competition side, the different military branches, and you guys would have to compete. There would be like a scoreboard and stuff, and that's what I guess what really got you into cybersecurity.
Yeah, that was the original start, because those war game exercises are very real world, right? They're about penetration testing. So that's red team, blue team, purple team stuff, like real network services, real IT, OT infrastructure. But then you kind of have that distilled or kind of encapsulated and minimized version of that in competition. And they call that capture the flag, right? So when I first got in, they had this competition that all the other branches were putting on, and they called it Cyber Stakes. So it's meant to be this Olympic style event in all these different categories of what you would compete in, like reverse engineering or binary exploitation, cryptography, web application security, memory forensics, stego, like the list goes on and on. There's a lot of really cool stuff. And those are the categories for a capture the flag competition. And I loved it because it's a competition, right? There's a leaderboard and a scoreboard up. Like I can see my name up there. Oh, if I get 50 more points, I'll be above the next guy. Gamifies that whole learning experience, and I think that's awesome. Like you retain so much more that way, and I loved it.
So what are some of your favorite resources to go and like get into this space, like tangible like websites or maybe like a little Pico CTF that people could actually like pick up and understand maybe as a web developer skill set? That's what this channel is. So what are some things that you use?
Yeah, there are tons of resources. Like there's a plethora and a whole list of things you can use to practice and sharpen your skill. You mentioned Pico CTF. That's kind of very beginner oriented and super hand holding, which is good. They say it's aimed towards like middle school and high schoolers, which is a straight up insult. Anyone can practice and play with it. It ramps up in difficulty pretty well. Hackthebox.eu is big on the web developer scene in that there are a lot of web challenges because you're normally your first initial foothold on a box or trying to access or compromise a whole system. You see a lot of web mistakes. You see a lot of website vulnerabilities. So Hack the Box is all about penetration testing, but you will normally find your initial access through a website. There's overthewire.org that will showcase some like Linux skill set, and that can also get into like the reverse engineering and binary exploitation stuff, which is hardcore. CryptoPals.com, that tries to teach cryptography, that also has a pretty hardcore trajectory and learning curve. Pwnable.kr, there's the Sans Holiday Hack Challenge, there's micro corruption, and you can also check out my channel. Originally, it kind of started out years ago with just teaching programming and having Python tutorials that are really old now and actually kind of bad. But the later stuff, when I got into that capture the flag scene, I thought, why not record some walkthroughs or like solutions? In the scene, in the culture and community, people will post write-ups or like written out solutions of how they've accomplished or solved one of the challenges. So I thought, well, let's do video write-ups. Let's just screen cap and record how I'm trying to tackle a challenge or a problem.
And then what are some of your favorite kind of like events? Do you go to events, conferences?
So live competitions are incredible, right? You don't get any more learning experience from when you're sitting beside other competitors and can talk to them and ask them questions. Same thing for organizers. And those are competitions though, right? You can also head over to conferences like B-Sides. So that's a community, like volunteer-led security conference that's everywhere. They have them one in DC, one in Delaware, even Athens, Greece. There's stuff going in Tampa, literally everywhere. You just Google security B-Sides and they're all over the place. But I think that's the most important aspect of going to conferences, just getting to know people, networking, and plugging yourself in, like being a part of the scene and the culture.
So this channel is mainly focused, I guess, on web dev, you would say, but how well do you think most web development skills, let's just say, PHP server side and front end JavaScript, how well do these skills transfer over to cybersecurity? Do they hold up? Do you need to learn a bunch of IT stuff? Do you need certificates in IT? How well does that move?
Like, obviously, web security is just a very, very small portion of a big field. Also incredibly important, right? Because websites are everywhere. Every corporation, every company, everything has to have one. That's a big attack surface, right? And let's say you need to have that understanding of how HTTP, how the whole protocol works. Yeah, you can get and post, and you do that all the time in JavaScript and Ajax and Axios and all that. A lot of times you're going to be dealing with those kinds of requests, and you're going to be automating them the same way you do in JavaScript, but you might have to do them over and over again because you're trying to automate an attack or you're trying to abuse some kind of vulnerability. The web development stuff is really crucial, especially in understanding and trying to unwrap a web app and that web app security. There's a thing that they cover. It's called OWASP, or the Open Web Application Security Project, and they have a list of the most important like security vulnerabilities, or the most common ones that have been seen throughout the year, and that is a gold mine of knowledge if you dig into it.
So as far as like certificates in this field, I know there's like CISSP, and then there's OSCP. So those are people that can talk about it, talk the talk, kind of they know about what's going on in the field. And then you have the other people that sit at the keyboard and actually do the hacking, do the attacks, do the defending. Do you think there are any other kind of like certifications that people need to get into this field or kind of like help land a job?
It's not absolutely necessary, but for some jobs, right, if you're looking at some kind of big corporation or some kind of federal government stuff, they will want other certifications. Like some people I know want Security Plus. I know CompTIA is a big one. CEH, Certified Ethical Hacker. Certified Ethical Hacker is one that I don't see a whole lot of wood behind the arrow for. It's something you just got to get the notch on your belt, so you did it. CISSP is big, and that's a hard hitter. It's super important for any like CISO or like a chief information security officer, because they got to be in the know. They have to have a very, very wide knowledge, like breadth. But it's about management. It's about kind of talking about it and being able to talk the talk, right? OSCP, like you mentioned, or the Offensive Security Certified Professional, that's on the keyboard, like legit stuff, uber lead hacks or penetration testing, breaking into a network, and it's real. Personally, I find a lot more value in the technical certifications. Like if you can really rock a keyboard, then you're special. CISSP and the management certifications are absolutely important, but I think to get the real seriousness from someone, I think being on the keyboard is crucial.
Most of the time in web dev, certificates don't really mean much. It's kind of like just about your portfolio and, like you said, what you can do. But how do you build a portfolio in security? Do you just have like a list of CTFs that you've done? How do you prove your merit without certificates?
GitHub, big thing, right? So like you said, having your portfolio is necessary. So having a GitHub account that you're pretty proud of is a big thing. And having those competitions, like you said, that's pretty okay. You can put on your resume, first place in whatever military government-wide exercise or whatever you want. Maybe I've heard of some people like literally putting their Hack the Box ranking on a resume, which sounds both silly but also kind of nice. If you can prove that, I know how to do this, and I have done this before and it goes well, then it's a foot in the door. That's a conversation starter.
For us people watching that don't really know, and what kind of like what you're saying might be a little bit abstract or esoteric to them about all of these maybe technical mumbo jumbo, what are some like real world examples that you know of that we could relate to and be like, oh yeah, that is a problem. That's actually, I see why,
So I think cross-site scripting is like probably a good thing to showcase for the people watching, because you're all web developers, right? You're into the programming and internet scene. Someone was streaming on Twitch. I don't know if it was specifically Twitch, but some streaming service, and the chat that they were using and the people were watching, someone had tried to enter just HTML, like, markup language, maybe make some text bold or make header fields, and it's cheesy and that's silly. But why not try and inject or try and enter some JavaScript code? Now, if that renders and is ran in your browser and even on another person's browser, or what if everyone in the chat's browser, you can do some damage. Like, JavaScript isn't going to give you like remote code execution and be able to run commands on their computer, but you still control their browser. So what's to stop you from redirecting them to another website and then another website, or stealing their cookie, or stealing whatever they have saved in the browser's cache, or forcing them to download something like they call it a download drive-by, where make a request for a file, pull it to your computer, and then what's going to happen is Internet Explorer or Firefox or Chrome going to automatically execute it? Why not try? Cross-site scripting doesn't seem like an absolute red flag, because it's not complete command and control, but you can still use that to leverage and gain a little bit more access to another person's machine.
So right now you're transitioning out of the Coast Guard. You're basically done. And now you're actually teaching the people in the military how to do this security. So how's that going?
Yeah, I'm moving into a new gig that's trying to teach the rest of the armed forces, the rest of the military, and how to actually hack. So the course that I'll be taking up is CTE, I think, or cyber threat emulation, right? The military and the government have specific squads or groups of people, like they call them CPTs, or the cyber protection teams. Those are assigned people that will move in on a network, maybe on some kind of deploy mission, and survey and do their own reconnaissance, listen in, and protect and stuff. So one aspect of them is the threat emulation. So they are acting as the bad guys to improve the good guys, right? Your best defense is knowing how the offense works. So I think playing Capture the Flag and learning a lot of the red team stuff is good for that. And that's hopefully what I'll be jamming with next, teaching a lot of people.
How did you move in to that gig? Did they come to you, or did you apply to that?
One of my friends in the service was taking one of their classes, and he knew that they were hiring. So he talked in and was like, hey, do you want to check out my boy John Hammond? And they're like, yeah, man, send him a resume.
What was it like to interview for this job?
It was interesting because what they wanted when we got on the phone and they said, all right, we're going to do this Monday at 10 a.m., meet in our office or whatever. I need you to prepare a 10-minute presentation. And I'm like, okay. Like, I need you to show how do you teach and also the technical level. So I'm like, okay, I can do that, I suppose. So I have some presentations and some stuff that I've done before that I was able to showcase. If you create your portfolio like your work, when you know it through and through and you know how to answer questions off the back of your hand, like then you feel solid. Like then you feel like you're in the game.
So coming from a web developer standpoint, usually they give you like some whiteboard tests and here's a project, make this real quick. I can't imagine that they would give you like, here's a CTF, please do it while we watch, because that would be like just too much time and you're alone on the spot. So is that why they did the presentation, or do some companies do that?
Yeah. So some other companies that I looked at, they had asked me to solve some challenges. They gave me a 24-hour time window, and they said like, okay, we've got 8 challenges up, and go see how many you can solve. We want a report and everything that you can do when the 24 hours is up. Send me an email. So it was a remote thing. Although I know a company that is wanting to be there live for their that hiring process, trying to solve some challenges. And I think that's awesome because it definitely shows what you can do. But sometimes it's a crunch to fit in a report and showcase everything that you can do. I think the more detailed you are, but not like nitpick detail, but the more open you are and the more explanatory, is that even a word? The more you explain all your thought process, the more you explain why you jump to that conclusion. I think that's what they're looking for, is seeing your intellect and your rationale behind the answers that you came to. So this is a challenge that I developed. I wanted to showcase my team and some of the people that I've been trying to train and get educated as to one method or one possibility that a web session might be stored normally in a cookie. There's a technology called the JSON Web Token, or the JWT, and JSON being the JavaScript object notation. So it's stored in that curly braces and then variable equals value kind of format. So this simple web application is to showcase supposed to showcase that, and I called it Jot, in that it's supposed to jot down whatever you'd like. So it's a simple, stupid scratch pad that doesn't really have any real functionality. It's just to showcase the vulnerability. It says register with your name. You can use whatever name you'd like to log in with. If you don't like your name, use a short and cool one like John. That's supposed to be a reference to me and also a link to that GitHub account to showcase John the Ripper. That's not absolutely what you need to use, but it is an option. And the same thing with that powered by JWT, I wanted to showcase this Java Web Token. So this is a cool site that we'll actually take advantage of to showcase what that JWT and that cookie is actually made up. Register my user. I'll just call myself Josh. So once I hit enter, okay, great. Supposedly I'm logged in, and here's my scratch pad, which we can do anything we want in here. But what I am curious is how it knows that I am who I say I am, right? So it stores that in the cookie. I'm using just Cookie Manager in Firefox, so I can open up the Cookie Manager for the current page. Now that I'm logged in, I can see I have a cookie named JWT on the site that I'm viewing this application on. And here's the value of it. It looks like a lot of nonsense. What this is actually base 64, and that's one encoding scheme to kind of showcase data in a form that's actually a little bit more easy to process. Maybe you might have special characters or punctuation in some kind of text. If a computer wants to read that or send it to other places and process it, maybe it just needs to remove some of those. So it'll instead encode it to lots of letters and numbers there. Whatever, it's just a way to represent the data. It's split into 3 parts. You can see the period that's kind of denoting the split, but let's explore it in that Java Web Token website, jwt.io, and it will show us, given an example encoded setup to the decoded setup, what each of those 3 phases actually mean and represent. So I'll paste in the one that we're working with here. It says, okay, we're using a specific hashing algorithm. It's a Java JSON Web Token, and my user is Joshua Fluke. Cool. If I wanted to be, why not be the admin? Because that's important, right? Let's go ahead and log out. And let's say we're the admin. Oh, it says I can't log in as the admin. Well, okay, let's see if we can take advantage of this web token and become the admin by trying to understand how it's put together. It says that we have a secret here that's verifying the signature or how this is made up. You can see the encoded is all red here. So I can't modify the user and really be able to do anything with it that's without knowing the secret or kind of the password for the specific data. So we can try and brute force it or track down what it might be. So the last thing we can check out is that John the Ripper repository, and that's a utility that will allow us to kind of brute force and crack potential secrets or the potential password that might be behind this JSON web token. So I have it installed and accessible on my Linux computer and system here. I've stored it in opt, which is just a handy location where I like to put all my tools. So John the Ripper is in there, and it has a utility called JWT to John. If I actually open this up, you can see that it's just some Python code that will go ahead and convert the signature from base 64, as we've seen before, into hex, and then try and crank through it with something that John the Ripper can particularly work with. So it will go ahead and decode a portion of it. Let's go ahead and run that. It will need the Java web token or JSON web token supplied, so we can go ahead and paste it in. And then it's kind of hard to denote the difference between the input and the output, but that is what it just spat out for us. So that's a format that this utility, John the Ripper, can work through. Redirect that to a new file, and we'll call it our token.txt. So we'll call John with the file that we wanted and now our token that we want to work through, and we can supply a list of potential words or passwords that could be the secret for this token. So the way we tell John to use that is tac word list equals and then a file full of all of the passwords that we would want to try, and that's called a dictionary attack. It is in a couple directories up. The rocku.txt word list is pretty excellent, and it cracks that almost immediately. I'll showcase what that rocku.txt is. See it off to the side here. It's a huge long list of tons of words or potential passwords or potential secrets that we're just going to hammer at that web token until we find out the one that fits and gets the data properly decoded. We found out that it is simply subscribe, like what I did with that one. All right. We can go back now to that JWT site and supply that as our secret. Let's say the secret is subscribe, and let's change the user now to admin. Now, this is the new generated web token, so we can go ahead and modify our cookie to replicate that. I'll open up the cookie manager one last time. Let's change this. We can edit and set the value to this new piece of garbage. It's a lot of random letters and numbers there, but once we save this, and if we refresh these pages, we should be the admin. So it says, here's your scratch pad, and the flag is Java JSON web token was just what you thought. And that showcases how you can manipulate any other kind of user if you can figure out what their username might be and how you can crack that session.